created a 6-step program to resolve plantar fasciitis at home. This took me years to create. When I say that I have been testing and perfecting this protocol for over a decade, what I mean is that I have tested countless approaches, and to be quite honest, most of those have failed. I was missing key steps that targeted critical movement deficiencies in the feet and lower leg, and I wasn't addressing the real issue. I was following recommendations that I had learned years ago, and they may have been helpful for managing symptoms and for short-term relief, but those methods were not addressing the underlying cause. In this video, I will share with you the program I put together from years of trial and error and making the mistakes most foot practitioners make today. I'm Dr. Angela, and I'm the Plantar Fasciitis Doc, and I'm all about helping you resolve PF at home. Now, let's get into it. There is so much misinformation out there regarding plantar fasciitis. Many people end up wasting weeks, months, and even years on outdated tactics that do not work. Ask me how I know. This might surprise you, but if you are wearing foot orthotics, a night splint, a walking boot, rolling your foot on a frozen water bottle, getting cortisone shots, wearing thick, cushiony shoes like Hoka's or Brooks, you are sabotaging your plantar fasciitis recovery. I see these treatment applications again and again, and they all fail. I'd like to share with you the story of how I fell into this specialty and how I learned to effectively treat PF. Lauren was a patient of mine, and she was training for our annual Music City Marathon in Nashville and developed plantar fasciitis. I began treating her with those traditional protocols I mentioned earlier. I recommended orthotics in her running shoes, static calf stretches because she was a runner and most runners do have tight calf muscles. I recommended she roll her foot on a frozen water bottle 3 times a day. I also prescribed rest from all activities. Lauren's condition didn't improve, and it only seemed to get worse. This forced me to dig deeper into the underlying cause of PF, and I was treating it all wrong. I discovered new information and the latest research that changed what I knew about PF. We altered our treatment protocols, and Lauren's condition began to improve immediately. Here's what we stopped doing. I stopped telling her to ice her foot. Applying ice was delaying her healing. I stopped telling her to stretch her calf muscles with static stretching. Static stretching isn't the best way to improve flexibility. And I told her to ditch her orthotics. Orthotics were keeping her foot muscles weak and not improving her strength and mobility. Here's what did work. We transitioned her out of her Nike running shoes that had a very narrow toe box and over 10 millimeters of heel elevation, and into footwear with a wide toe box and 0 drop, no elevation of the heel. We focused on correcting her mechanical deficiencies with targeted strengthening exercises and progressive loading. We began to use fascial release technique on her plantar fascia, calf muscles, and Achilles, and found that these adhesions were limiting her mobility and causing most of her pain. We were thrilled with her progress. Within a couple of weeks, she was experiencing less pain and starting to run for short distances again. The breakthrough with Lauren's condition was when we began to avoid passive approaches like resting and icing and short-term band-aids like orthotics. We began to target the root cause and focus on restoring foot strength and mobility, and this made all the difference. Now, I help people break free from the cycle of short-term fixes and focus on correcting the structural issues that lead to your PF. If you are struggling with PF, chances are you're missing these key steps too that actually target the source. I'm going to break it all down for you in this video and share the 6 steps I used to resolve Lauren's condition, and this is the same protocol I use today. Before we get into it, if you want a copy of my free guide that includes these 6 steps, put the word guide in the comments and I'll be sure you get a copy of that. Step number 1 in my program is to transition to functional footwear. So what exactly is functional footwear? It is shoes that supports the natural shape of our feet that include a wide toe box and no elevation of the heel, also called zero drop. The number one cause of PF is wearing the wrong shoes, and it's not your fault. Most people are following recommendations from foot practitioners, or you're falling into marketing traps that claim to have the best shoes to fix your feet. Unfortunately, most of the shoe brands that claim to be your PF solution are actually making your problem worse. Brands such as Kuru, Hoka's, New Balance, Brooks, UFOs, all of those brands have damaging features and are sabotaging your progress. The majority of conventional footwear has toe boxes that squeeze your toes together and elevates the heel above the forefoot. This combination of damaging design features begins to alter the shape of your feet over time and weakens the intrinsic muscles of your feet. To function normally and optimally, our feet and toes should spread and splay wide at the forefoot when we walk and run. These are a couple of examples of functional footwear: widest at the toe and zero drop, flat from heel to toe. I have an approved shoe list of the shoes that I approve and recommend for PF. Put the word shoes in the comments and I'll be sure you get a copy of that. Step number 2 in my program is to strengthen your foot core. I mentioned in step 1, the small muscles of the arch are called the intrinsic muscles of your feet, and I like to call it your foot core. There are 3 primary causes of foot core weakness. Number 1 is wearing footwear that narrows at the toe, as we described in step number 1. When our feet and toes are unable to spread and splay, it weakens our foot muscles, so wear wide toe box shoes. The second cause of a weak foot core is wearing foot orthotics. Our feet are inherently strong and do not need this type of support long term. Using an external device like an orthotic is a temporary solution and doesn't address the underlying cause. Our feet become lazy and dependent on these external devices, so ditch those orthotics and be sure you take a slow, progressive approach to transitioning out of them. And lastly, the third cause is avoiding barefoot walking. I'll explain this fully in step number 6, but briefly, barefoot walking is good for your feet and naturally strengthens your foot core. Step number 3 in my home recovery program is to strengthen weak calf muscles and peroneal muscles. And step number 4 is to increase ankle dorsiflexion. These 2 steps have been combined in this video because they are so closely connected. One common finding that I see while assessing most of my patients is the presence of short, tight calf muscles. I'm sure most of you have heard that stretching your calf muscles can help correct plantar fasciitis, but I'm not sure everyone understands the connection between calf inflexibility and how it can lead to PF. When our calf muscle group is tight, it limits the movement of our ankles. We need proper mobility in our ankle to progress through our walking and running gaits. Ankle dorsiflexion is the action of bringing the foot towards the shin. I know this is probably getting a little deep into body mechanics, but hang with me here. This is important. If ankle dorsiflexion is limited, it alters our normal gait cycle and places added stress on the plantar fascia. So, the way this compensation plays out is if your calf muscles are tight, your ankle can't move optimally, and it causes your arch to collapse and overpronate, which puts excessive stress on the plantar fascia. It eventually breaks down and shows up as a repetitive strain in the form of PF. Did you get all that? I hope so. Step number 5 in my program is addressing fascial restrictions, and it's one of the most critical steps to resolving your PF. Fascia is the connective tissue that wraps and surrounds every single thing inside our body, including our muscles and other soft tissues. When your fascia is healthy, you can bend and twist and stretch fully. When it is unhealthy, it is rigid, inflexible, and very painful. Most people with PF have unhealthy, restricted fascia in their feet and calf muscles, and it can be the primary cause of your PF pain and immobility. The way that we release these adhesions is with targeted strokes using a specific tool that helps us locate and identify adhesions quickly. Clearing out these restrictions in the fascia in your calf, Achilles, and plantar fascia allows greater flexibility, mobility, and decreases your pain. Step number 6 in my program is to walk barefoot with toe spacers. I know most of you have been told to avoid barefoot walking if you have foot pain, but this is one of the healthiest things you can do for your feet, and it naturally strengthens your foot core. It may be difficult to walk barefoot when you're in a lot of pain, but as your feet get stronger from the exercises in my program, you can begin to slowly introduce your feet to this new concept. I recommend starting to go barefoot for 10 minutes each day, then increasing time each week. Another way to naturally strengthen your feet is to wear toe spacers. Toe spacers are a tool used to help stretch and realign your toes from the damaging effects of narrow toe shoes. They also help broaden the base of your feet, which allows you to use your foot core more optimally. Don't forget, you can get a copy of this complete protocol by putting the word guide in the comments. If you'd like to hear more about how to strengthen your feet with the 3 best exercises, watch this video next. I'll see you there.